we're going to take a look at backdooring an APK, so a pre-built Android application, and we're going to turn it into an SPF agent. We're going to backdoor the APK with agent. It has us download something we need, APK tool, give it the location of the app, so it's going to be abcnews.apk. It's going to rip it apart. Give it some information about our app we want to control it with. Key 1 is again always the key I use for these examples. And it's control path. Just going to build that into our backdoored APK and put it back together. And we can use the Android master key vulnerability, which will allow us to replace legitimate applications. So on my test phone, I have the real ABC News that we just backdoored. So the master key vulnerability, if the device is vulnerable, will actually allow me to replace that using the keys that are on the original one. So it'll act as though it's a replacement and update from the real author, when in fact we should have no business doing that since we don't have access to their private keys at ABC News. This was a flaw in Android. It has been fixed, but it may or may not have been fixed on the devices you run into. I run into older Android devices that are not getting updates all the time. They're no different than we saw on our Windows and Linux systems. They didn't necessarily have all of the updates they needed. Of course, I'll just go do something else and then it'll finish. Indeed it does. Again, this is the legitimate version that was already on there, and we're going to replace it with a backdoored version. The looks and feels to the user are exactly the same, but it has some additional functionality. Now we can do number 1 and tell it to attach to a deployed agent. So we'll let these guys basically do a handshake with each other the same way our application did. This is a phone that's controlled by our target, so we've managed in some way or another to get them to download this. Well, I guess we should send it to them first, right? So that's actually, we'll send it to them. Example, we can send it to them via text message. So let's just upload it to a web server and send them a text message telling them to download it. Maybe not the most sophisticated attack ever, but it may work. So our app phone, so 5554, is going to send a text message to 5556 telling them, we just gave it the default text. This is a cool app, and it did give you the option to change that. Download the APK. Since they are vulnerable to the master key vulnerability, it will actually allow us to replace the ABC News app that's already there. If not, if they're not vulnerable or you just don't want to use master key, it gives you the option of signing it with your own keys. So if you have a legitimate Google Play key, you can sign it with that. You can actually even upload your backdoored apps to the Google Play Store. I'm sure they wouldn't appreciate it very much, but there's nothing to stop you from doing that. And install it. Just going to replace another app since we're using master key. Installing. I don't know why emulators are so slow. This computer has 16 gigs of memory on it. You'd think it could use some of that. Finally. Alright, then when we click open, it'll look and feel just like the original one. It'll even have the same news. And then we can do our, what I mentioned before, attach. We can attach to a deployed agent and let them do their three-way handshake basically with each other. So SPF will be able to communicate with this agent. So it can communicate either HTTP or SMS. So it will check in periodically over HTTP, or we can send it a message from that 5554 phone, and it will send that text message, and it will hide it in the background and do whatever it says to do if it has the right key and it comes from the right number. So this does actually take a whole minute to finish. This is going to give us access to that device. So there are client-side attacks, and you can even use Metasploit. There are a few Metasploit modules for phones, a couple of client-sides for Android, a couple things for iPhone as well. Certainly not as many as we have for some of our other platforms, but anything that is a Metasploit for mobile, you can use it directly through SPF. It has a couple of client sides all its own. If you go into the client sides in social engineering, it has some custom ones there. But primarily, I think the best way to get on a device is like this, through an application that's malicious. So we were able to get access to it.